Santa Claus, thank you very much for accepting my invite to come onto my podcast.
Hi, Denny. Thank you so much for inviting me on Working Class Heroes. I really appreciate it. I'm a fan of your podcast. I looked at a whole bunch of them recently, so I'm delighted to be here, and it's good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. And you too, Santa. And I have to say, I'm also a big fan of yours. And what the listeners are going to get a chance to see that this Santa Claus isn't just any old Santa Claus. This Santa Claus is active and making a difference in the world and in all sorts of parts of the every genre of politics. You've had a political career, you've got an advocacy career, and you became Santa Claus. You actually are Santa Claus who lives on L Street in the North Pole. You're the actual real deal, Santa Claus. So, Santa, as I do on every podcast, you were born, then what happened?
Yeah. Well, I was born back in the late 1940s, so I'm 76 now, and I was born in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. My family moved to New York, grew up there for a while, attended school, then went to boarding school up in Connecticut, of all places, then went back to New York for undergraduate school and graduate school. I wound up volunteering a lot for different things. I came from a sort of upper middle class family. I noticed a lot of the friends I had weren't that well off. So I kind of got a pretty good impression about a wide variety of the way people lived in certain classes, as it were. My sort of heart went out to a lot of people who weren't quite as well off as I might have been, or people in my family might have been. So when I got through undergraduate school, I was hired, having been a film and video major at New York University. I was hired by the New York City Police Department to set up the first video unit in any law enforcement agency in the United States.
Wow.
And it was part of my undergraduate work independent study. It was a new program in New York University, so they let us do most of our coursework independent study. And I figured, well, if I'm doing this, I may as well do something that's pretty exciting or attention grabbing. So they allowed me to go around with the New York City Police Department and film their emergency services district, which is the one that goes out on rescue operations and other things. Anyway, went through the school and wound up setting up their first video unit, and that was replicated with a lot of state and federal agencies subsequently. And one of the things that came out of it was a program based on my work initially was COPS. You've probably seen a version of that over. That's pretty international now. But I saw a lot of children falling through the cracks. The social service agencies weren't really able to accommodate them during emergency situations sometimes. Most people reacted to me. They thought that my presence was sort of a calming thing. So a lot of the cops who were around me said, "Hey, you ought to become a chaplain."
What years are we talking, in the 60s here or?
Well, I went through undergraduate school, graduated in 1971, and in 71 to 72, my full title was Special Assistant to the Deputy Commissioner, Administration of the Police Department of the State of New York, which is a
Wow.
mouthful.
Wow. So you're right in the
Almost.
thick of it in the 70s. I was just born. I was being conceived in 71 and getting and coming to the earth in 72. So it was a long, I'm 51, so it was a fair while ago.
Well, a lot of what I was seeing was during the, as you mentioned, like the hippie movement, the civil rights, the first big feminist push,
Yeah.
and some other movements that were going on. This, the LGBTQ communities were coming into their own. And when I went to seminary, I was more attracted to the Christian perspective. I'm a monk and a bishop, and in fact, we recognize the monk's order. It's the order of the Anam, and our soul friend in Gaelic. And um, the bishop part of it is the Apostles Anglican Church. So it's kind of an interesting combination. And when I was doing my research, one of the things I looked into was St. Nicholas, because Nicholas had an interest in children and as patron saint of children, among
Yeah.
other things.
And I
Seems
think it's
very.
worth mentioning that today, of all days, that I reached out to you, Santa, just a couple of days ago, hoping that I could get you on before Christmas. I know this is a busy time for you, and we'll talk about the things you're doing right now. But as Santa Claus, this is probably the busiest time of your life. And I was saying,
Happy
hey,
St.
listen,
Nicholas Day.
it's St. Nicholas Day today, right? We said, all right, we got
Feast
a
of St.
chance.
Nicholas.
Yeah, on the 6th of December, you said to me this would be perfect opportunity. It's St. Nicholas Day. So sorry for interrupting, but I think it's important to let everyone know who's listening to this know, like, years ahead of the time, or recent, and people who are listening now, but obviously people who will listen to this for years to come. And it's St. Nicholas Day. It's the 6th of December 2023. We're doing this interview.
One of the things I was going to see if I can punch up here on my computer while we're talking, which um, is one of the things that I thought about when I was going to seminary. And this nice fellow, John Fugelsang, wrote an interesting thing. We were talking about Christianity, you and I, just a moment ago. And I'm going to read this to you if you don't mind, because it's
Please
sort of
do.
Jesus was a radical, nonviolent revolutionary who hung around with lepers, hookers, and crooks, wasn't American, and never spoke English, was anti-wealth, anti-death penalty, anti-public prayer, but was never anti-gay, never mentioned abortion or birth control, never called the poor lazy, never justified torture, never fought for tax cuts for the wealthiest Nazarenes, never asked a leper for a copay, and was a long-haired, brown-skinned, homeless, community organizing, anti-slut shaming Middle Eastern Jew. How about that?
Yeah,
I
maybe
think a
that's.
lot of people in your audience are going to say, "Ooh, what's Santa talking about?"
No, well,
But
hey, listen. This is why I
you,
said at the beginning, you are not you are a advocate of love, peace, and harmony. But some of the things that you say are shocking.